Welcome to Juice Talk, a public service feature of Walsh Communications WJUC. The views and opinions expressed on Juice Talk are not necessarily those of Walsh Communications, WJUC, its management, staff, or advertisers. When calling into Juice Talk, you're required to turn the volume down on your radio. Our call-in number is 419-826-1073. That is the only number that we will answer. 419-826-1073. Ladies and gentlemen, Juice Talk starts right now with Skylar Meadows.
Greetings and welcome to Juice Talk. My name is Skylar Meadows, the facilitator of all that is talk here on the Juice FM 107.3 WJUC Toledo. It is the 10th. It is the 10th of February 2013, and we have a full show here, so welcome and thank you for tuning in to the Public Affairs arm. We're going to talk about Governor Kasich's apostrophe S, the governor's, how about that? The governor's proposal for school funding. And we're going to look at this a different way. We will have guests on the Montgomerys from culturelovefamily.com, which is a website in which they have articles that talk about what's going on in life, a forum actually, dedicated to things that are going on in culture, love, and family as it relates to the African American experience. So the writers are African American and they write about it through their eyes. And so one of the things we want to talk about is this education funding. Now, to get you up to speed on this, so Governor Kasich, the guy with all the big proposals in Ohio, he always has a proposal. First one was to privatize the turnpike, and then he kind of backed down, and he has some kind of idea about privatizing the prison system, though we haven't heard much about that lately. But anyway, his 2-year budget has to be ratified through the Ohio General Assembly, so he was presenting it. He went on tour and he did a couple of town halls. He did one here in Northwest Ohio that was related to economics, but he has this big plan. He did one in Columbus about the economics as well. It was supposed to be this big town hall. They're like, tune in. Everybody in the media is helping to hype it up. And you tune into the live stream, and there were no questions taken from Facebook, no questions taken from Twitter. There were just these random people from across the state, most of them from Columbus, so 3 out of 5 were from Columbus, talking about small business. That was not a good look, Governor Kasich. I mean, the town hall, yeah, okay, that was a good idea. But if you're not going to really take the questions of the people, then just don't even do that. So the same thing here. He comes to Northwest Ohio, comes to Maumee, goes to this, company in Maumee, which, okay, hooray, he picked a spot in Northwest Ohio, but he didn't talk to the people that are impacted by small business. Let me get you that part. The people that are really impacted are me, you, and the next person. And, of course, the business owner. So I just thought it wasn't a wide enough net to do what he wanted it to do. Maybe I missed the point. But anyway, so now he has this education proposal. Welcome to Juice Talk. You are on the air.
Skylar Meadows, Richard Montgomery from culturelovefamily.com.
Well, hello and welcome. I was just prefacing our remarks here, saying that our governor is the guy with all the big proposals. First, privatization of the turnpike, and then talking something about the prison privatization, but we haven't heard much, and then bringing people up to speed about his town halls this week about the economy, and now we're going to talk about education. So how are you this morning?
I am doing wonderful. How are you?
I am well. We get to get a double treat today. We have you as the founder and one of the... Do you do the editing at all on Culture Love Family, or just your wife?
No, Charisse is the chief editor for Culture Love Family. I am probably more, my aptitude is for business, so I let her do I let her do the good stuff.
Well, it was nice. I said founders, and editors, so I didn't want to, put anybody out like that, but admittedly, Charisse is the editor in the family. Okay, so thank you for coming. This is part of a cross-promotion that we're doing. Soon you will see an article from me on Culture Love Family, but right now we're going to have your remarks. And so you are involved in education, and you got a chance to view Governor Kasich's proposal. What do you think about this proposal?
Well, it gets a super sad face for me.
A super sad face?
A super sad face.
Why?
Well, for some of the listeners outside of Ohio, the governor released this proposal, it was supposed to be a $1.6 billion increase to K-12 schools.
Sure.
It's not so much an increase when the previous 2 years he cut $1.2 billion. So really the schools who originally lost money won't see that money back. But some of the provisions in there is very simple, very similar to what other states are doing other states are doing with their educational systems. There's an equalization grant to make sure that low-income districts are able to have the cost per pupil as suburban districts where there's higher levels of local tax income. There's a continued reliance on making sure that the districts are able to pass levies, which is problematic for poor districts especially. And there's increased funding for school vouchers. As some of you know, we have a Republican governor who's very interested in the business sector, and he's making sure that the business sector capitalizes as much as possible in the public schools. And for the first time, they're adding money now from the state to supply charter schools with money for facilities. Now, what's most interesting is probably, well, most interesting, but
it's not the most interesting.
No, the most interesting part is the way he allocated the money. The problem when you look at this budget is that when you look at how districts were awarded money, a significant number of affluent, high-performing school districts, suburban, have received 100% increases in their budget. While the unanimous proportion of the lower performing urban districts received little, if any, increase.
Let's hold right there. The name of this, first of all, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Juice Talk. I'm Skylar Meadows, and I have with me Richard Montgomery, one of the founders and contributors to CultureLoveFamily.com, which talks about all that is culture, love, and family from the perspective of African Americans, and we're writing this through our eyes, and so they're the founders. So we're talking about the education piece. I find it ironic that Governor Kasich calls this achievement everywhere, but the people that will be least likely to benefit are the urban schools. What do you think about that?
Well, absolutely. What he said was that the students who have less in this proposal would get more, is what I think the quote from the Columbus Dispatch. Well, that's simply untrue, Governor Kasich. When you look at the details, there are 29 schools out of all the school districts in Ohio that will receive 20 to 25% more increases each year in their budget for the next 2 years. And among this group, there were 7 suburban districts that received more than 100% of their budget over the next 2 years. And those districts are, districts like Island-Tangi Public Schools, New Albany Plain Public Schools, Avon Lake, Avon Local, Twinsburg, Woodridge, Lordstown. And did you notice I didn't mention an Akron or a Cleveland or a Toledo in that group?
I did. I did. And also because Toledo would get 0. 0 is not my hero. Toledo would get 0 under this next year. And the superintendent, Dr. Pecco, spoke out about this. And then Springfield may get some money. And I did like the superintendent in Springfield's remarks. She says, she approached it cautiously optimistic. All right, that's exciting, but see if it really goes through. When you mention Olentangy, that's near Columbus for people who aren't familiar. It's a suburb right outside of Columbus, really. An educator in Columbus sent me an inbox saying that this is the worst. This is the worst for the Columbus schools. Yes, they get a little bit of a push, but not enough to really help them.
Well, at least there was some justification in the way these numbers looked for Olentangy and for the New Albany schools. Because really what the governor says is that suburban districts are experiencing rapid growth, and there's a need for this kind of funding to be able to educate and increase your student population. Okay, I'll take that. Let's see.
I don't.
I take what you say, and then I investigated. And when I investigated what he had to say, the census figures say that Delaware County, which is where Olentangy is, and Franklin County are actually going to see increases in their population. For Delaware County, it was like 30,000 people between 2010 and 2015. And Franklin County will see an additional 40,000 residents. But that's out of those 7 districts that received more than 100% of a budget increase. Mm-hmm. There's only 2 of them. So that explains why you gave 100% increase to those school districts, but it has absolutely no justification for why these other school districts were received so much funding.
Okay.
Now, I hate to speculate that every district that received, out of the 29 that received these significant increases, all of those were Republican held districts. I'm just not going to say that.
Don't go there, but it probably would be true. So what's because we now are splitting the time between you and Charisse, what is your takeaway? Will this pass? Let's do this, the two questions, because we'll have you back in March. Will this pass the legislature, and how does this hurt or help African American students or urban students?
Well, to your first question, we have a Republican-led legislature, so a pro-business plan, which is basically what this education plan is, will probably pass.
Oh.
Well, I mean...
You're the expert, though. You're the expert, so I'm just saddened by that. I don't know, whatever.
Well,
okay.
Well, there's arguments for why there would be some rescissions into some of the budgets, because there's just no justification there.
Okay.
But, I don't see this coming through, with a black eye. I think that most of what he's proposing will probably pass. Unfortunate. Now, the outcome here for African American, Latino, and poor students is that, for many years people have said that, school funding is not necessarily related to student achievement. And that was with the history of school funding up until the late 90s. Up until the late 90s, we realized that most of those studies, economic studies, were flawed in their statistical methodology, and that school funding is indeed tied to academic achievement. So what do you say when you look at a budget where the governor has placed money in schools where there's already students at high? Because when you look at the 7 school districts where he placed most of the money, all of those school districts have excellent and excellent with distinction ratings. And all of the school districts that receive little or no money have the academic watch and the continuous improvement rating. So it's difficult to see how in a school where there's academic watch or continuous improvement ratings, how you'll not give them any more money and still expect for academic achievement to rise. Right. It's just not going to happen. So what the governor has said, that in these 8 large metropolitan cities across the state of Ohio that are doing poor academically, they're just going to have to keep doing poor, because we're not going to give them any more money to raise their academic achievement, which is a sad day for Black, brown, and poor people all across the state of Ohio.
It is. Well, we will have to keep an eye out on this, because it's not all said and done, and we'll have to take a look at how the legislature is approaching this. So you'll be back in March, and we can talk more about this. But if people want to see articles from you, they can go to culturelovefamily.com, correct?
Correct. Actually, the subject of our discussion today will be out in an article tomorrow on our website. So you'll be able to find more details on how I rank the districts based on their performance, their budget increases, and what that really means, and based on the research and based on policy.
Hooray, that is so cool. All right, I thank you so much. And then now we're going to hear from Charisse Montgomery, who is going to talk to us about the State of the City address, unless you change your mind.
Hi there, how are you?
Greetings, welcome. This is Charisse Montgomery, who is one of the founders also of culturelovefamily.com, as well as the editor-in-chief.
Correct.
Right, I didn't want to put Richard out there because I didn't think he was the editor-in-chief, but you got to keep it calm. So
that's quite all right.
Right, so now your role in starting this site is also to make sure that as the talent comes in, like more people to write for it, that you edit them and help them understand what type of writing you want to reach the readers, correct?
Correct. So we talk about subject matter, and then I also make sure that everything on the site is well edited before it appears on the site. But we definitely want to make sure that we're hitting the pulse of what's going on in people's worlds and what's going on in local and national politics, and also in the social world and people's social lives and families as well.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Richard's been on before, so thank you. This is your first and not the last time. We're doing this monthly. So what would you like to, are you talking about State of the City today, or?
Yes, okay. Yes. I've been reviewing the State of the City address for the city of Toledo by Mayor Mike Bell, and I wanted to just kind of talk about some of the things that he highlighted about the city of Toledo and where the city is going, and also what he didn't highlight about the city of Toledo and where it's going.
All right.
Did you have a chance to listen to that address yourself?
I did, and I listened to it in a different manner because you know what? I was all about whether or not he was going to announce a re-election bid, so I guess, yeah.
And of course you did.
And of course, yes. So what was your take on the address?
I think that what he talked about as far as economic development for the city of Toledo was excellent. I think that the direction he's going to find innovative ways to bring businesses into Toledo, something that larger cities have been doing for decades now, and I think he's really trying to pull it together and do international partnerships that will actually bring a lot of money into Toledo, hopefully, and bring some unique businesses and perspectives into Toledo. So I think that's a good side of what he's doing there. I think that what I missed in that State of the City address is how that economic development plan really translates into people's lives in the city of Toledo.
Right.
Because when you talk about just bringing businesses in, that all sounds great, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those businesses will translate to jobs for the people of Toledo and jobs that those people are currently qualified to hold. So that concerns me a little bit. When we're talking about doing building construction, then that's one of the areas that he mentioned having jobs for, building new roads, things like that. But he didn't necessarily mention how these partnerships are going to translate to work for people now.
So the how. So the how is missing. I agree with that. Also, do you think it was because of the venue? Let's put it that way, the venue. Because in the past, the State of the City addresses have been in public venues, and this is the second year in Mayor Bell's administration where they've gone in front of the Rotary Club, and then us as regular citizens, unless we covered it for the media, had to watch it on, a stream. That changes the address, kind of.
I absolutely agree, and I thought about that as he was talking in the address, because he definitely is kind of catering to that crowd and not really catering to the public audience to say this is how it's going to affect your life. He's talking about businesses, he's talking to business people, but that didn't necessarily translate for the rest of the city, and that address is still for the whole city and not just for the business population of the city. So I definitely think that affected his messaging, and I think that he gave a message that he wanted to build business in Toledo, but I still think that he missed out on an opportunity to talk to everyday folks who weren't necessarily sitting in that Rotary Club audience.
But that's been his challenge the whole administration. Do you know what I mean? Missing out on the common folks. It's not that Mayor Bell doesn't do anything that is not in. Like you said, people are irritated by this international feel because they don't quite understand it. They just see Chinese business trips, do you know what I mean?
Right.
And Chinese investors and Chinese people buying, and so then they've become the target. So when does the explanation come? I mean, we're 3.5 years in. You said you want to run again. Yeah, that was missed. What other things about the State of the City struck you from the point of view of the people or African Americans?
Well, I thought I was a little concerned about how the mayor relayed the attitudes of Toledo citizens about the city. It seemed like he has the idea that a lot of the people in the city are just really down on Toledo.
Or not.
I don't necessarily think that's the case, but I do think he addressed some other things that are relevant, like how to address crime in the city.
Okay.
Now, I think there are some gaps there still because, again, the how was missing. He says we're going to hire more police officers. Well, okay, when you hire more police officers, what are those police going to do differently than what's happening right now? Because that doesn't seem to be affecting the rates of violent crime in the city.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Right. So I'm concerned about the type of policing and what the police are really doing. You can hire, a dozen teachers, and if you don't teach them to teach correctly, they're not going to have any better outcomes in the classroom. And I think the same is true for policing. You have to make sure that they're doing an effective job of policing to lower that violence rate, because that's one of the things that deters people from wanting to stay in the city of Toledo right now.
Let me ID here, Charisse. My name is Skylar Meadows, and you're listening to Juice Talk here on the Juice FM 107.3 WJUC Toledo. And if you're just tuning in, I have with me Mrs. Charisse Montgomery, who is one of the founders and the editor-in-chief. The woman with the corrective pen or delete key on the keyboard for CultureLoveFamily.com, which talks about all that is culture, love, and family from the perspective of African Americans, and they are the writers. So we are glad you're here. We're talking about the State of the City address. One thing I want to circle back to on that, Charisse, is that with the audience being the business community and Mayor Bell laying out, like you said, excellent things that went on in his first administration, if the how is missing, how should we feel? Like, he says that we're our own worst enemy in a way, and I agree with him, but what's going to be different? What can he do different to reach people, to help make them the cheerleader? We can all say it's a great place to live, but what's going to be different to bring investors, to bring citizens back, the population back?
Well, I think that's an important thing. Messaging is important, and when he has an opportunity to talk to people in the community, letting him know how these changes will affect their lives is really essential to making sure that people do feel good about those changes. When people are suspicious of having Chinese investors, you have to tell us how these Chinese investors are going to have a positive impact on our own lives. And so, you know, he talked a lot about economic development because of that, the audience that he had. Mm-hmm. But really, economic development doesn't mean anything when it doesn't turn into a job for you and your neighborhood's not looking better and all of those things, you know?
Sure.
So he really needs to get out there and talk to the people, and in a lot of his public forums, tell us how that's going to affect people. And a lot of it will happen when we start to see the results of these changes. For instance, there starts to be new construction, and we start to see people being put to work. But in the meantime, before that happens, we still need to know what the plans are and how that will affect other people.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that this was different because the emphasis at the end was going to be the big, I love this city, I love it so much, I'm running?
Well, maybe that's the case. I think, though, that he still should have focused a little. Actually, another thing that I felt like he missed in this was he was talking to business leaders, and he missed the opportunity to really discuss how education is going to impact that economic growth.
Absolutely.
He got to it and said, education is going to be really important, and I'm looking for you all, the business leaders, to tell us how to do that.
But I think that's not... I don't know that was appropriate. Do you know what I mean? I got what that soundbite was about, but I don't know that's appropriate. But I've said over and over, Charisse, that Mayor Bell is not a polished politician. He doesn't roll with an entourage of speechwriters and all of that. So whatever he's saying, he is well-intentioned, it seems. But, some of the things, again, should be polished up more after 3 years.
That's true. And, that's part of his staffing, obviously, because if he hires a speechwriter, then he needs to make sure he's got those bullet points down and figures out how that's going to translate to other people.
Well, we're broke, so if he hires any of this entourage, there will be backlash. So what do? You know what I mean? That's the catch-22. We're broke, so any of these extra frills that make you better, no, just go to the 22nd floor and do your job.
Right.
So what is the last, let me see, what do you think about the speech overall as far as being received by everyday people and mostly persons of color in the city? Does this resonate with somebody on Belmont?
I don't think so. I think that, again, the how of these matters is what was missing there to make it relatable to people who are not in that business group that he was talking to. When you say this is going to be positive for Toledo, you need to tell people how it's going to be positive for each member of Toledo's community, mm-hmm. And not just how this is going to be great for your profit and your bottom line.
But it was good. That's the thing about it that's so ironic. A good speech, it just wasn't enough explanation possibly for all sectors of the people you serve as the mayor.
Correct. He hit on a little bit of everything, but he didn't, to me, hit on what is going to resonate with the rest of the community and with people who are out there struggling. How is this plan going to help them? Mm-hmm. And I missed that in his speech, and I wish he had talked more about that.
Yes, because now that he's officially said he's on the campaign trail, there's no, anything else, people will just say, well, you're running for mayor. But he's still the mayor, so...
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so hopefully he stays on the job while he campaigns.
I'm sure he will. He knows. He already knows. But yeah, the police piece, that has been a good move, despite the big brother is watching, backlash. But we can't have it all. He was hired by the voters to make decisions for the city of Toledo. So, this is the way that it works. So, Charisse, thank you so much. And then you'll be back in March with another subject, or we can continue the same subject. And do you also contribute to Cultural Love Family in your spare time?
I write regularly, yes.
Okay, so postings are on Monday. Everybody can go to the website and go from there. And then if you have any kind of comments, you can always give your comments to them on that site.
Yes, that would be excellent. We welcome your comments, and we welcome some great discussions on the site.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Charisse. I hope you have a very wonderful day.
Okay, thank you. You too. And they can also join us on our Facebook group. I wanted to mention that. But thank you and have a great day.
I'm glad you said that because I just went and liked it yesterday. Yay.
Yes,
All right. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you so much to Richard and Charisse Montgomery, the founders, and Charisse is the editor-in-chief of CultureLoveFamily.com. You can catch them on Facebook. Go and like their page. And you can also go to their website. And as Richard said, they post on Monday. So each new article, and then that way you have a week to talk about it. Last week his article was about, I didn't want to get into it because we would still be talking about it, and we have another guest that's going to call in a few moments here, but his next guest, his article last week was about Ray Lewis. It was just an interesting article, a different way to look at it. All right, let's go to our next guest here.
Hello.
Greetings. Welcome to Juice Talk. This is Skylar. How are you?
Hi, this is Shanda Gore. How are you?
Greetings, Dr. Gore. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great.
Good. Dr. Gore is the associate. Never mind. She's from the University of Toledo. I'm getting my information out here because I actually have it written down. I actually took the information from the Eberly Center when I was there the other day. All right, so you're here though to talk about the 5th annual Celebrity Weight Night.